Good morning, everyone. So we are sitting outside in the sunshine a little bit today, and we had a request from one of our riders to talk about what kind of careers, what kind of jobs there are working with horses, and how you get to become an instructor, and what kind of training instructors have. So I thought that was a really great question to ask. So today we're going to do our lesson sitting down at this table, and I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about what some of those careers are, what some of those jobs are that you can do working with horses. So I'll tell you a little bit about it, and then we'll open up for any questions, because I think this one might be a really nice one to have more interaction with everyone. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to do was just to talk you through what some of the jobs are that work with horses. So through our virtual lessons, we've seen some of them. Obviously, you know about riding instructors because you guys come and ride at a riding school, but we've also seen health visits from the vets, so the veterinarians. We've seen farrier visits, looking after the horse's feet. So there's lots of jobs that are to do with the health and wellness of horses. Horses are very large, complex animals. If we want to be able to keep riding them, then it's really important that we take good care of them and keep them very fit and healthy. So there are lots of jobs to do with that. So as we said, we have horse veterinarians. We have our vet here today, actually in the background. That's their truck here doing some work with our horses. And they are assisted by veterinary technicians. So that's a person who goes through training, and they will go through specific training with horses to be a horse technician. And that's important when we start talking about vets as well, that vets all go through veterinary school, they all go to veterinary college, and then they kind of specialize. So some vets work with the general categories are small animals and large animals. So quite often, if you go to veterinary practice, they will have vets that work with small animals and vets that work with large animals. Obviously, horses are large animals, so that's the department that we want to deal with that. So people specialize in different types of animals. So we obviously want an equine vet. Within that, there are also different types of equine vets that have their own specialisms. For example, equine surgeons. Some vets become qualified equine surgeons, and that becomes their specialism. Near a little bit, there is a veterinary clinic called Pilchuck. Our vets actually are from Pilchuck who are here today, and they have a surgical facility. So lots of horses in this area, if they needed surgery for colic or something like that, they might go to Pilchuck. They have a surgical facility there and specifically trained surgeons for horses. So other healthcare jobs that we talked about being a farrier, and Darby gave us a really good introduction to what that means. We also have massage therapists. So our horses, especially when they're working hard, they can get a lot of tension in their backs and things like that. So we want to give our horses massages to help release all that tension, help them feel good and be able to do their job. So that is something, and the requirements to be a massage therapist are different depending on which state you live in and which state you operate in. So in Washington State, I believe you do have to have a license to do that, but you don't have to be a veterinarian to do that. We also have chiropractors for horses, and my preference is that my chiropractor for my horse is also a trained veterinarian, but chiropractor is another job that you can do for the health and wellness of your horse. We have a visitor. Should we say hi?
Dakota wanted to learn about equine jobs too.
Being a barn cat is a very important equine job, right? Look, keeping everybody happy with smiles on their faces, right? You help keep everybody. Hi, how you doing? Nice to see you. Okay,
Back to business.
Right? So their job's to do with the health and well-being of our horses. So then we talked about barn management. So we have people who will run a barn, who manage the barn, who order all the hay, who select all the feed, who make sure that all the stalls and pastures and things are well looked after and well maintained, that our fences are well maintained, that we have all the right contractors that are responsible and know their job coming to the site to help us look after our facility. So that is a barn manager. In the one area of horses that we haven't talked about and that we don't really talk about, it doesn't have a lot to do with little bit, is horse breeding. So people who specifically breed specific types of horses, for example, fjords, and so they would manage their farm and their herd of horses to breed specific types of horses. So the mares, the moms that are going to have the baby horses, they're called brood mares. And then we have the stallions, who are the dads of the horses. So the job of a breeding manager is to find the best moms and the best dads to get together to make the best horses. And they're trying to create good, strong, healthy horses that are going to make good riding horses. Or maybe not, maybe they're not breeding them for riding, maybe they're breeding them for something else, but they're the ones who are managing what horses they select and put together to try and create the line of horses that they are looking for. Okay, so that's a horse breeder. We're then going to move into, let's talk about riding and training. So this is what you guys are going to have had most like exposure to. So trainers are people who train horses for the job that we want them to do. So that could be training them to be sports athletes, so to be dressage horses, to be barrel racing horses, to be roping horses, any of these skills that we want our horses to have. That would be a trainer who does that. And so they are normally extremely accomplished riders, but they aren't necessarily what we call professional riders, but sometimes they are. Those two things quite often go together. So a professional rider is somebody who is very accomplished as a rider, and that is their job, is to train horses and then compete those horses. So like people who go and ride at the Olympics and things like that, they are professional riders, but they are also training their horses to be able to go to that event. They don't just turn up on the day and somebody else has trained their horse and they get on a horse and go. So the training and the riding very much go together. And they're going to be working in a team with their barn managers, with their farriers, with their vets, with their horse nutritionists, all these different people to come together to help support that horse to become an athlete. So trainers and riders, they're different skills, but they're often combined in the same person. We also have, so being a groom. So a groom is somebody who helps a professional rider or trainer to like get their horses ready for them. So that rider might be riding 10 horses a day, and they need to get on those horses and work with those horses and give those horses the opportunity of that quality of riding experience to help those horses learn to be a better athlete. So the groom is somebody who will go and get the horse from the pasture, clean the horse up, get all the tack and equipment out, put all the tack and equipment on the horse, lead the horses out. When they go to competitions, they're going to be looking after the horses in their stables. So the grooms are really, really important people that know they need very good horse handling skills, and they need to know the horses' personalities very well and know the expectations of those riders. They work very closely with those riders. Grooms work extremely hard. It's not a well-paid job. And many horse jobs are jobs for passion, not jobs for wages. So yeah, bear that in mind if you want to work with horses. Okay, so yeah, they are grooms. And the other job you might have is an exercise rider. So that is somebody who they're not necessarily, if we want to become an athlete, we don't want to go to the gym and lift big, heavy weights every day, right? But we do want to have movement to keep ourselves fit. So while we have our professional trainer, they might ride a horse 3 or 4 times a week. They might have an exercise rider who might also be their groom, who will take that horse on a hack out, on a trail ride or something like that for another 2 or 3 days of the week, keeping that horse moving, keeping its body fit, but not giving it a super hard workout. So that's called an exercise rider. They also have those a lot for race horses. They'll have like hard training sessions and then easier training sessions with the exercise rider. I'm not going to really talk about the horse racing careers. Horse racing is a very, it's an industry on its own. So I'm not going to go into depth about that today, but there are lots of jobs within the horse industry. Obviously, lots of similarities. The horse trainers, the horse breeders, the horse owners, the jockeys, the exercise riders, and lots of other things that go around the horse racing industry. So if you wanted to go ahead and look at that, then that would be an interesting thing to look up online on your own. So finally, the other thing that I wanted to talk about was all the industries that support horses. So things like people who develop and sell horse feed, and all the services like pharmaceutical products, so all the medicines and things like that that we get to our horses. People who fit saddles, that's a professional job, and that someone will that's what they spend their whole time doing, and believe me, they are in demand. Someone will travel around making sure that everyone's saddle is fitting correctly. Very important job. They represent different saddle producing companies. So there's also lots of jobs in what we call the supply chain. So people who supply goods and services to the riders, to the trainers, to the people who are looking after and developing those horse athletes. Okay, so they are some of our main jobs and careers, but the one I wanted to talk about the most, because that was what the question was about, was becoming a horse riding instructor. So what I did was I asked some of our instructors to tell me a little bit about how and why they became instructors. And I wanted to share a few little stories about that with you guys today. So first of all, if we are going to teach anybody anything, then we can only teach someone something that we know and that we understand. So our job as instructors is to teach you guys how to learn to ride. And really, that's all about understanding how to communicate with your horse. So we have to understand that ourselves, because we can't teach something that we don't understand. So everyone who's an instructor has a long experience with horses, has spent a lot of time with horses, learning about horses. So just bear that in mind, that experience is very important, and there is no substitute for just spending time around horses. So I thought I'd share some stories with you. So I love this one. So I'm just going to read this one out. I fell in love with horses the first time I rode at age 8 with a cute mare called Valentine. I was hooked and never looked back. I would consider myself an all-round rider. I've done a little bit of everything, but currently my focus is on dressage. I wanted to learn to be an instructor, to pass forward all the wonderful things that folks have done for me and what a kind horse person I wanted to be. I've now been an instructor for 3 years, and that is Instructor Devin. So I know that Devin spent a lot of time when she was a young person just hanging out at horse barns, getting to know different horses, jumping on any horse that she could. And she is a very accomplished horse person. If anyone has seen her relationship with the horses on the ground, I think that's something that we can all aspire to as horse people. And yeah, Devon has done a lot of different things in her riding career and has been an instructor here for 3 years. Here's a different one. So I rode as a teenager a hunter jumper. So if anyone knows what that is, oh, that's loud. That's a particular style of jumping where we want the horse to have a really good rhythm. Yeah, so it's a jumping technique. So this person rode as a teenager as a hunter jumper and stopped riding when they went to college. They went to college and qualified with a degree in English, but decided they wanted to follow their lifelong love of animals. They went back to school to become a veterinary technician. We talked about that before. And after having a break from that to raise their children, started to volunteer a little bit to learn everything they could about horses and therapeutic riding, and has now also been teaching for 3 years this year, and that is Instructor Diana. So again, we can see going back that lifelong love of horses, that experience being in the veterinary profession, and then coming through to learning more about horses by being a volunteer, and then coming into therapeutic riding instruction. So again, gaining all of that experience by dealing with different types of horses in different environments. Okay, and then the last one is me, actually. So I started riding when I was about 8 years old, and I always tell everyone this story because my mom bought me a riding lesson for my birthday, and I cried and I cried and I cried because I really didn't want to go. But she was like, Jennifer, you're going to go to your horse riding lesson. So I always blame my mom for the fact that after that day, I never stopped riding horses, and that's why she is still now looking after one of my retired horses that is 35 years old. So it's her own fault for making me go when I was 8 years old. But yeah, I started riding when I was 8. When I was a teenager, I used to just hang out at the barn, help work at the barn. I was riding any horse that anybody would let me sit on, which meant I fell off a lot because it meant I got to ride a lot of really naughty horses. They're normally the ones that people want you to sit on for free. When I got my first horse when I was a teenager, used to do a lot of jumping, a lot of cross-country jumping. And then as I got older, I started to ride dressage. And that is now my passion with my riding, is that I really like learning about improving myself as a dressage rider. So I now have my own horse and I ride all year round, come rain or shine. And I take 3 lessons a week. And then on the days when I don't have lessons, I ride my horse on my own. And sometimes that's in an arena, but also we do a lot of trail riding. My horse really enjoys that. So it's really important that we have that mixture of activities. And I've been an instructor for about 4.5 years. I used to teach outside of a center that wasn't a therapeutic riding center. And then when I came to work at Little Bit, I started to train to be a therapeutic riding instructor, and I've now been doing that for about a year. So yeah, so we have a lot of experience in our instructor team. And again, as I said before, there's no substitute for just spending that time around horses, not necessarily riding, on the ground as well, and getting to know horses. So just really quick, I wanted to talk about how you get certified to be a therapeutic riding instructor. So Little Bit is a premier accredited PATH International Center. So that is the Professional Association of Therapeutic Horsemanship. And so anyone who teaches here needs to be a PATH certified instructor. So to be a PATH certified instructor, you have to do quite a lot of supervised teaching. So someone who is already a PATH instructor has to supervise you teaching to give you guidance so you can learn how to improve yourself as a therapeutic riding instructor. You also have to learn all of the PATH standards and requirements. So that's a lot of things about how you run your center and run a class safely. We also have to learn about some techniques as to how you adapt your riding skills to teach people with different diagnoses. And that's why it's called adaptive riding, because we're trying to adapt our approach to riding to what the rider is able to do. And then once you're ready, you have to do a test. So you do a riding test, and you do a test where you have to teach a lesson, and they watch you teach a lesson, and you get scored on different criteria. And if you pass that test, you can be a PATH certified instructor. But once you are a PATH certified instructor, every year you have to go through, you have to submit evidence of continued professional development. So, and that's in different kind of groups. So we have to keep learning about different diagnoses, about different disabilities. And we also have to continue our horsemanship knowledge. And you have to submit a report every year to PATH to tell them what you did that year. So you're continuing your education in becoming a therapeutic riding instructor. So that's a lot of information, I know, and I've spoken at you guys now for well over 20 minutes, so I'm sure you're bored of hearing my voice. So let's go ahead and open it up for questions, and let's hear about anybody who wants to work with horses, and let's see if I can answer any of your questions.